What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As you can see behind me, we got a ton of new parts here for the Ford. We got everything from a new used engine to seat coverings to brand new powder coated bumpers. We have everything to finish the truck. But in today's video, we're going to be refreshing this motor here so that way it's trouble free for many miles to come. So let's dive right into it. Okay guys, so as you can see right here, we got ourselves a new used engine. This motor came out of a truck that was crashed in Texas. It only has 71,000 miles on it, so it's pretty low mileage, just like the truck. And it's also in really good shape. There's no oil leaks anywhere. But the one issue with these motors is over time the timing chain will actually stretch. And since we have the engine out of the truck right now, it's just going to be much easier to do that job. So what we have here is we have new timing chain, new cam phasers, which are the sprockets that go on the cams. And we're just going to take off all this stuff on the front of the engine here, the timing cover, and then pull the old chain off, put the new chain on, and then button this thing back up, and then it's ready to go into the truck. So let's get this timing chain off. Now, as you can tell, we got the engine here all mounted on the engine stand. It's going to be a lot easier to work on it. The next step is we need to take everything off so that we have access to take off both valve covers, and then take everything off so that we can take the front timing cover off. That way we can replace the timing chains and cam phasers. So let's get to work. Alright guys, so as you can tell, we just pulled the passenger valve cover off here, and this is crazy how clean this engine is just compared to that the old engine that was in the truck. I'll throw up a side-by-side comparison so if you can see the difference between this new used engine with 71,000 miles versus the old one which had 63,000 miles but was taken care of poorly. So it's just incredible what maintaining your vehicle and doing regular oil changes will do to an engine. So now that we pulled the valve cover off, we're going to do the same to the other side and then take the front cover off. Okay guys, so before we take the timing chain off, we want to line up all the timing marks so they all line up, and then we'll take the timing chain off and replace all those components. So let's do it. So we got all the timing components off, as you can tell. So before we start putting the new timing components back on, there's this RTV sealant here that's left on, and we want to get rid of all that and clean everything up off of this front cover, so that way everything's gonna go back together and we can get a nice good new seal here. So let's clean all this stuff off. Alright, so we just finished cleaning all the old RTV off the front cover here and just cleaned everything up so it looks really nice. So it's all ready to go back together. Now, we have all new parts here. We have 4 new cam phasers in each of these boxes, 2 exhausts, 2 intake. We also have a brand new timing chain. We also have a new timing tensioner. And then we have 4 new bolts for each of the cam phasers. Then we even have new Motorcraft sealant. So everything's going to go back together the proper way with OEM parts. So let's get these parts unboxed and start installing them onto the engine. All right, so we just got the front cover all torqued down right here. The next step is going to be putting the valve covers on, but before we do that, we have to put a couple little oil lines back in and the timing solenoids. So let's get that stuff installed and get the valve covers on. Alright guys, so as you can tell, we got the oil line in. We also got these two timing solenoids in. The next part that we're going to replace, I actually didn't plan to replace, but that's the vacuum pump here. And the reason that we're going to be replacing that is because it's leaking oil, as you can tell. And unfortunately, the seal that's leaking is internal, and you can't just replace the seal. You have to buy the whole new vacuum pump. This is one of the most common oil leaks on the 3.5 liter EcoBoost engine, but we're going to get this sucker off and get the new one back on. Alright guys, so as you can tell, we made a ton of progress. We have both valve covers installed. We have the high pressure fuel pump installed. We have all the accessories installed. One thing I went ahead and did is I swapped AC compressors. That's just because the AC compressor that came with this engine was kind of making some funny noises and the clutch on it didn't feel very good. So I swapped it with the one that came off the old engine and it feels really good. We also have the AC belt on. So the next step before we put the intake on is this engine, the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, because it has direct injection, which means fuel is directly injected into the cylinder and not port injection where fuel enters before the cylinder. There's a lot of carbon buildup that tends to happen on the intake valves. So I'll go ahead and show you guys what that looks like. So as you can tell, that carbon buildup will just disrupt airflow and it can potentially cause a misfire. So what we're going to go ahead and do is take some tools and we're going to clean all that carbon off of each one of the valves. So that way there won't be any misfiring or any problems related to that. So let's go ahead and get that carbon off. All right, guys, so I've cleaned all of these ports. They're plugged up so nothing goes down into those holes. This is the last one left to do, and I'm going to kind of show you what it is that I'm doing. So as you can tell, those ports have quite a bit of carbon buildup on them. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the engine so that those valves are completely closed. So I'm going to do that real quick. All right, so as you can tell, those valves are now closed. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screwdriver, just like this, and I'm going to start chiseling off the carbon buildup just like that. So I'm going to do this on both valves, and then I will resume once I'm done doing that. Okay, so now I've scraped off quite a bit of carbon with the screwdriver off of the valves and up here on the cylinder head. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an air hose and just blow that out. Okay, so as you can see now all that stuff is blown out. So the next step is going to be taking a wire brush and just scraping everything that I can pretty much reach with the wire brush like this. So I'm going to do this and then I will resume once again. Alright, so I've scraped all of that off, as you can tell, and it's just sitting down there. So once again we'll blow it out. So, as you can see, it's looking much better. The next thing that we're going to be doing is spraying some brake cleaner down there. And now, after the brake cleaner is sprayed, I'm just going to take this brush and just kind of scrape everything. So, after spraying the brake cleaner and brushing it, I'm just going to let it sit down there for about a minute and let it soak in and maybe loosen up anything I wasn't able to get, and then we'll blow it out. Okay, so now the brake cleaner's been sitting in there for about a minute. So now what we're going to be doing is just spraying it out. All right, take a rag and just wipe that crap off of there. All right, so as you can see, that looks much better. It's going to allow for a lot better airflow over the cylinders. And the last thing that we're going to do is take the air wand, and I've already removed the spark plug, and we're just going to blow that out if there's any other junk that fell through the valves. Okay, so now all the rags are removed, and I'm just going to show you guys what exactly all these ports look like now. As you can tell, every single port looks far, far better than it did before, and the carbon's all gone, which is going to allow for a lot better airflow into each one of those cylinders. So now there's one more part that needs to be removed before we put the intake on, and that is this rear coolant crossover pipe. As you can tell, it's cracked right there, so we're going to be replacing that, and then we're going to be installing the intake. So let's get that done. Alright, so we just reinstalled the coolant crossover pipe, and before we move along with installing the intake, I just want to install some new spark plugs. So let's get that done. Alright, so everything's installed on the engine, but before we install the motor into the truck, I'm just going to attach the wiring harness to all the necessary sensors and connect the coolant lines and all the boost lines. So let's get that done, and then the engine is completely finished.